Now, before I start talking about what I'm going to be talking about in this video, I might as well say this. I thought I was done talking about Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric for the Wii U for good, and that's because that game has practically evolved into the next Sonic 06, where everybody by now knows just how bad that game is, and they've said everything you can possibly say about that. And that's what I thought for a while, too. Now, over the past few months, due to the relative lack of things happening with the Sonic franchise, the Sonic fanbase has done a ton of digging when it comes to things from relevant game files to LinkedIn profiles from people who worked on the video game. And the Sonic fandom dug up a lot of interesting things from Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric, from unused files and cinematics to, most interestingly, on this one animator who animated the game, he actually had footage from the pre-release version, which was seen in the very first trailer in his demo reel. And considering all the effort put into the whole Sonic Boom project, all this did was raise a ton of questions about the game and why it ended up releasing in the very state it was in. Now, due to all this speculation, a person with the website Unseen64, which is a website well known for posting information on beta and unreleased video games, decided to ask many of the people who worked on the game about their experiences with it, why the game ended up the way it did, and why there was a massive downgrade. And I'll actually link the video in this video so you can go watch it, and it's honestly worth a watch in my opinion, because it explains what went wrong from what the developers said. But in case you don't feel like watching that video, I might as well paraphrase a few of the key points of that video because I'm going to talk about what this all means. Now, first off, let's talk about what happened with the game and why it ended up the way it did. Now, people with a good memory might remember what happened when the one developer talked about the Sonic series, why Sonic Team was in decline, and even dropped a major hint about the next Sonic game that would end up being real. But of course, the main focus of that article was the Nintendo Wii game Knight's Journey into Dreams, which came out in 2007, and this blog post was written in 2007 about the game's development. And well, the game had a very rushed development, where what happened was, originally they were developing it for the 360 and PS3, and then against Iizuka's wishes, it was cancelled and made for the Nintendo Wii instead because of profit reasons. And I think by now it's common knowledge that the Nintendo Wii was a last generation console when compared to the next generation consoles at the time, which were the 360 and the PS3, and it was a much weaker console. So the game only had about a year's actual development, and we're not talking pre production, we're talking coding time. And due to this, where they had to take a game from a more powerful console that was in development and put it on a weaker underpowered console, they ended up with lots of pressure when it came to developing the game. And that was not a good thing because the game ended up getting poor critical reviews in the end. But now, several years later, it seems like history repeated itself yet again. Of course, the conditions were different. Nintendo had the whole 3 game contract with Sega, and the third game in this case happened to be Sonic Boom, which was this new Sonic game being developed by Western developers Big Red Button, who were shopping around new intellectual property, and Sega's like, here you go, you can make a Sonic game. So when they were first starting development on it, because they were told it was going to be on a next-gen console, think Xbox One or PS4, they developed it with the CryEngine, which was an engine used mostly to design games for the PS3, the 360, along with next-gen. Now, if you look at both the games that have shipped on the CryEngine, such as Crysis, along with the early trailers for Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric, it's easy to see why they were going with the CryEngine. But as the game neared completion when it came to development, it turns out that the game was actually going to be running on the Wii U and not some high-end next-gen hardware like they'd hoped. So instead, they had to port this whole game to the Wii U, complete with the CryEngine and everything. And here's the thing, they did not have enough time to port the game to a new engine, nor did they have enough time to rewrite the engine for the Wii U. So what they had to do in the end was take this game that was being developed on the PC and poured it down to the Wii U. As keep in mind, you know that one demo you saw, like that was in February of last year? Well, that was actually running on the PC and not the Wii U. So they had to port this advanced engine and this advanced game all the way down to the Wii U, and that did not go very well, as you saw by the final result. And of course, they only had a few months to do it as well, so the whole game ended up being utterly rushed. So, what are my thoughts on this? First off, this is more proof that the Nintendo Wii U is still a weak and underpowered console. Had the Wii U been on par at least with the Xbox One and PS4, this would not have happened, but instead, this ended up being such a total train wreck. And of course, Big Red Button is not the only developer to struggle with the Wii U, as you have developer after developer after developer having issues with the Wii U hardware, and not only releasing games that run worse than the 360 versions, but also flat out coming out and saying that the Wii U is a crappy console with weak hardware. And it also doesn't help when you have groups like Fail Overflow not only telling people the processor the Wii U has, which is a weak PowerPC G3 or 750 based design, but that the Wii U is also weaker than an Ouya of all things. But what this also shows is how horribly mismanaged Sega is. Because here's the thing, even though the Wii U is a weak and underpowered console, it should still be able to handle a simple platformer. Maybe it can't handle the CryEngine 3, but it could probably handle something like an older version of the Unreal Engine, which is sufficient enough for making a platformer. And that's the thing. Sega is so horribly mismanaged that they did not want to give the developers of this game additional time to make it for this weaker hardware. And it's been around, what, 8 years since the whole Sonic 06 stuff happened? And it's 2015 now, and Sega still has not learned what they did wrong with that game. Rushing it. So, several months after the game has come out on the Wii U, just how much damage has it done to the Sonic brand? Well, it's pretty easy to see what it's done to the Sonic brand, because the Sonic brand's reputation is in tatters yet again. I mean, after stuff like Generations and Colors somewhat improved the brand reputation of Sonic, Sonic's brand reputation is in the gutter yet again, as people associate Sonic now with stuff such as Sonic Boom and Sonic 06. While at the same time, you also have Big Red Button having to lay off a bunch of people while the game was in development or towards the end, due to all the development troubles they had with Sega. And in the video, it is also mentioned how developers at Big Red Button were putting in work weeks that lasted 6 days. And as for Sega of America, they've already fired lots of people too, and they're essentially becoming non-existent, no longer making any console games, with only Sega of Europe and Sega of Japan continuing to make console games. Now, Sega hasn't said anything officially, but they did, however, private one of the videos on their channel, and that video happened to be the February Sonic Boom reveal trailer. And honestly, I think that's pretty much them admitting this game was, in fact, a piece of crap. That's all I really have to say, because it hurt the Sonic franchise heavily. That's all I have to say. Thanks for watching and subscribe for more.